Frank Warren is still raving on about Moses Itauma would knock out Martin Bakole. You know, and this is now the third or fourth time he's mentioned that to different media outlets, you know, about Moses Itauma. And my counterpunch is, let's have it. Let's see it. Because if he's that confident in Moses Itauma, because, you know, Frank don't normally talk about stuff he don't believe in. You don't really hear Frank talk like Eddie Hearn or Oscar De La Hoya. You know what I mean? You see Frank really speak on the things that he actually wants to put in fruition to actually take place. That's one thing you can depend on with good old Frank. Frank is going to talk about stuff that he's interested in versus Frank won't talk about stuff that he has nothing to do with. He doesn't want anything to do with. He doesn't want it to happen. He's not going to talk about it, period. So that being said, Frank, I think, wants and likes the idea of Moses Itauma taking on Martin Bakole. Now let's talk about the realistic factor of this matter. You got a guy like Moses Itauma, which is a great starting fighter. He has the potential to fill the world in the boxing heavyweight division. But putting him in there with Martin Bakole is not the smartest thing. It's courageous, it's ambitious, but is it the smartest thing to do for Moses Itauma? No. Why? Because what happens if he goes in there to take on the Congolese last king of Scotland and gets beat? I mean, gets beat bad, like Jared Anderson. He will be exactly where Jared Anderson is. Okay, because Jared Anderson suffered that same fate. He went in there thinking, yeah, I can beat this guy, which a lot of people didn't know. And what he didn't know, that he was the poster child of that type of punishment. You know what I mean? He messed around and found out, right? So it was more like, hey, I'm the example of a young, ambitious guy that shouldn't take jumps and leaps and bounds like that. Now, it is ambitious because if Moses does go in there and he does beat Martin Bakole, people can say Martin Bakole was overhyped, and they will say he's overhyped. For the people that thought he was overhyped anyway, talking all the stuff about what? About the sparring sessions that he really didn't even supposed to be talking about on a moral compass issue, you know? But if he's able to do that, he will be praised. And to say the least, he did what Jared Anderson couldn't do. You know what I'm saying? Especially if that is an in-shape Martin Bakole he ends up fighting if the fight actually takes place. But I do think that Frank Warren is pushing that fight, and I think he believes that that Itauma can beat Martin Bakole based on what Efe Ajagba did. You know what I mean? And it's always dangerous when you look at a fighter and you apply your fighter to the fighter that did what he did to the fighter that you want him to fight. You know what I'm saying? It's always dangerous because you have to compare the styles, which a lot of them don't do. They just look at that fighter and just, hey, well, if this was Moses, Moses would have been able to do this and Moses could do that. But how do we know that? We don't. All we can know is what those fighters have already done. That's the only thing that's been documented. The possibility, the future endeavors of challenges and battles are not been written yet because it ain't happened. So when people do see someone look vulnerable, they do get ambitious. They do open up the idea, like Frank's doing, of possibly fighting a guy, because if you would have asked him last year, before the Efe Ajagba fight, before the Joseph Parker fight, he would have told you hell no in 60 seconds. Not even 60 seconds, in a millisecond. He would have told you hell to the no. I wouldn't put Moses Itauma in there because he's the best. Last year, Moses Itauma was the best fighter or the best up-and-coming fighter that we had, right? He won an award at the Ring Magazine Awards for that. So now they're really looking at him being that guy. So I say, Frank, if you feel that way, if you feel froggy, please jump. But you guys tell me what you think of Frank Warren once again mentioning Moses Itauma versus Martin Bakole. In fact, Moses, he states, he believes, will knock Martin Bakole out. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.